August 19th, 1943. Wewelsburg Castle, northwestern Germany. Sister Maria Therese Gottwald kneels in the chapel basement, polishing a chalice that hasn't been used for worship in 3 years. The cup is solid silver, weighing approximately 2 kilograms, ornately decorated with Gothic crosses and Latin inscriptions. It's also hollow in ways the SS officers who requisitioned this chapel would never suspect. Her hands move in practiced circles, cloth against metal, creating the soft whisper of routine maintenance. Above her, boots echo on stone floors, guards changing shifts, officers moving between meetings. The entire north wing of Wewelsburg Castle has been transformed into an SS ceremonial center, Heinrich Himmler's personal project to create a spiritual headquarters for his new order of racial warriors. The chapel where Sister Maria kneels is now officially designated as an SS meditation chamber, though the guards still call it the crypt. Through the narrow window, she can see the courtyard where prisoners from Niederhagen concentration camp labor under armed guard, hauling stone blocks for Himmler's grand architectural vision. The camp is 300 meters from the castle, 700 prisoners currently interned. Mortality rate approximately 40% annually. Sister Maria has watched men die in that courtyard for 2 years. She's 41 years old, a Benedictine nun who took vows at age 22. Before the war, she served at the Franciscan monastery in nearby Paderborn, teaching Latin and history to novices. When the SS requisitioned Wewelsburg Castle in 1934, they allowed a small contingent of nuns and monks to remain as caretakers for the religious artifacts and architecture they couldn't quite bring themselves to destroy. Sister Maria was among those permitted to stay, ostensibly to maintain the chapel and library. What the SS doesn't know, what they haven't discovered despite 2 years of paranoid security sweeps, is that Sister Maria has photographic memory for technical drawings. She can look at architectural blueprints for 5 minutes and reproduce them with 90% accuracy. She can memorize engineering specifications, chemical formulas, organizational charts, and for the past 8 months, she's been systematically stealing information from the SS administrative offices and smuggling it out of Wewelsburg in ways that should be impossible given the security protocols. The chalice in her hands is leaving the castle tomorrow morning. It's being sent to a Munich museum as part of a religious artifacts preservation program, one of Himmler's pet projects to catalog Catholic treasures for eventual Nazi appropriation. The chalice will be examined, photographed, cataloged, and placed in storage. Nobody will think to look inside it because there is no inside. It's solid silver. Except it isn't. Not anymore. Sister Maria has spent 3 weeks carefully drilling a cavity into the base of the chalice, working late at night with tools stolen from the castle machine shop. The cavity is 8 centimeters deep, 2 centimeters in diameter, just large enough to hold a tightly rolled tube of rice paper containing detailed technical specifications for the V-2 rocket program that she memorized from documents left carelessly on an officer's desk last Tuesday. She finishes polishing and sets the chalice on the altar. It looks identical to every other ceremonial cup in the chapel. Unremarkable. Sacred. Invisible. Tomorrow morning, that chalice will carry information that could change the war. If the Allies know the V-2's technical specifications, they can predict launch trajectories, identify manufacturing weaknesses, prepare defenses. If Sister Maria is caught, she'll be executed immediately, probably tortured first to reveal her network, which doesn't exist because she works entirely alone. She stands, genuflects toward the altar out of habit, and climbs the stone stairs back to the main level. An SS guard nods as she passes. She's furniture to them. Harmless. A nun maintaining religious artifacts in a building dedicated to replacing Christianity with Himmler's occult fantasies. What they don't see, what they can't recognize, is that Sister Maria Therese Gottwald has been waging her own private war against the Third Reich using nothing but memory, patience, and an understanding of how institutions function. She knows the SS values appearances. They want to be seen as cultured, respectful of history, even as they plan to eradicate it. That vanity is their weakness. They'll never suspect that the harmless nun cataloging chalices is the most dangerous person in Wewelsburg Castle. Understanding Sister Maria's operation requires understanding Wewelsburg itself and why this particular castle became central to SS ideology. The castle stands on a hill overlooking the Alme Valley, built in the early 17th century as a Renaissance fortress. Architecturally unremarkable except for its unusual triangular layout, 3 towers connected by walls forming a perfect triangle when viewed from above. That geometry obsessed Heinrich Himmler when he first visited in 1933. Himmler, Reichsfuhrer of the SS and one of the most powerful men in Nazi Germany, was deeply invested in occult symbolism and pseudo-historical theories about Aryan racial superiority. He believed the SS should be more than a military organization. It should be a new knightly order, a spiritual aristocracy that would rule Nazi Europe for 1,000 years. Wewelsburg's triangular layout reminded Himmler of ancient Germanic symbols. He decided to transform the castle into the ideological center of the SS, a place where officers would undergo initiation ceremonies, where racial theories would be codified, where the mythology of the master race would be given architectural form. Starting in 1934, Himmler poured millions of Reichsmarks into renovating Wewelsburg. The project required massive forced labor. The SS established Niederhagen concentration camp specifically to provide workers. Between 1939 and 1943, approximately 3,900 prisoners passed through Niederhagen. 1,285 died there, worked to death hauling stone and building Himmler's vision. By August 1943, Wewelsburg contains several key facilities. The North Tower houses the Obergruppenführersaal, a ceremonial hall where 12 SS generals hold meetings around a round table, a conscious imitation of Arthurian legend. Directly below, in the castle crypt, is the Valhalla room where deceased SS officers are supposedly honored, though the room's actual occult purpose remains unclear even to most SS personnel. The castle also contains extensive administrative offices, SS personnel records, research archives for the Ahnenerbe, Himmler's pseudo-scientific organization investigating racial history, and, critically, for Sister Maria's purposes, temporary office space used by visiting officers working on classified projects who need secure locations for meetings outside Berlin. These visiting officers are security risks. They bring classified documents to Wewelsburg, work on them in supposedly secure offices, then leave the documents on desks overnight because they assume the castle's perimeter, security, guards, fences, restricted access, makes internal security unnecessary. That assumption is catastrophically wrong. Sister Maria has access to most of Wewelsburg because her official duties require it. She maintains the chapel, cleans religious artifacts throughout the castle, and assists the librarian in cataloging medieval manuscripts that the SS wants preserved. These duties give her freedom of movement that prisoners and even low-ranking SS personnel lack. Guards see her walking corridors at odd hours and assume she's performing some maintenance task. She cultivates an appearance of harmless piety. She's deferential to officers, invisible to guards. She dresses in full traditional habit, moves quietly, speaks rarely. To the SS, she's a relic of the old order they're replacing, kept around for practical purposes but fundamentally irrelevant. That invisibility is her greatest weapon. Sister Maria was born Therese Gottwald in Cologne on March 7, 1902. Her father was a civil engineer who designed railway bridges. Her mother taught mathematics at a girls' school. Therese grew up in an environment that valued precision, technical knowledge, and systematic thinking. She showed exceptional academic aptitude, particularly in mathematics and languages. She spoke fluent Latin by age 14, could read Greek and Hebrew by 16. When she was 21, her father was killed in an industrial accident during the construction of a Rhine bridge. The trauma sent Therese into a spiritual crisis. She questioned whether technical progress had meaning, whether building things just resulted in more ways for people to die. She joined the Benedictine order 6 months later, taking the name Maria Therese, seeking meaning beyond the material world her father had inhabited. But she never lost her technical aptitude. At the Franciscan monastery in Paderborn, she taught Latin, but she also helped maintain the monastery's archives, cataloged medieval engineering manuscripts, and developed a reputation for being able to memorize complex texts after minimal exposure. Other nuns joked that Sister Maria had a divine gift for memory. It wasn't divine, it was neurological. She almost certainly had what modern medicine would recognize as hyperthymesia, highly superior autobiographical memory. She could recall specific details from years earlier with perfect clarity, reproduce diagrams she'd seen once, recite texts she'd read a single time. When the SS requisitioned Wewelsburg and allowed religious caretakers to remain, Sister Maria volunteered. The Mother Superior questioned this decision. Wewelsburg would be dangerous, surrounded by SS officers and prisoners. Why would Sister Maria want to go there? Because someone needs to witness what they're doing, Sister Maria said simply. Someone needs to remember. She arrived at Wewelsburg in May 1941 and spent the first year observing, learning the castle's routines, understanding the SS hierarchy and security protocols. She watched documents move through the castle, noticed patterns in how officers handled classified materials, identified weaknesses in their operational security. By mid-1942, she was ready to begin her actual mission, documenting Nazi activities and finding ways to transmit information to Allied intelligence. The challenge was methodology. Wewelsburg was isolated, heavily guarded. Communication with the outside world was monitored. She couldn't just write letters to Allied contacts, even if she had any. She couldn't photograph documents because cameras were prohibited and closely tracked. She couldn't steal physical documents because security sweeps were frequent and thorough. What she could do was memorize information and find ways to encode it in objects that legitimately left the castle. Wewelsburg sent numerous items outward regularly, religious artifacts being transferred to museums for preservation, library books being loaned to universities for research, maintenance supplies being returned to vendors, food shipments, laundry services, administrative correspondence. Each represented a potential smuggling vector if she could develop encoding methods that would survive inspection. Her first successful operation was in November 1942. She memorized organizational charts for SS administrative divisions from documents in the castle library, then encoded the information using a simple substitution cipher embedded in a Latin prayer she transcribed on parchment. The parchment was included in a bundle of medieval manuscripts being sent to the University of Munich for authentication. She had no way to know if anyone would recognize the cipher, if the information would reach Allied intelligence, if the entire effort was futile. But 3 weeks later, British radio broadcasts included specific details about SS organizational structure that had not been publicly known. Someone had received her message. Encouraged, Sister Maria developed more sophisticated methods. She learned basic cryptography from medieval cipher manuscripts in the castle library, ironically the same texts the SS valued for their historical significance. She experimented with different encoding methods, finding ways to hide information in plain sight, false Latin translations where word substitutions conveyed technical specifications, musical notation where note patterns encoded numbers, decorative illuminations on manuscripts where color patterns represented data. Each method required incredible precision and nerve. One mistake, one suspicious pattern noticed during inspection, and security would tighten catastrophically. But Sister Maria had patience and discipline. She moved slowly, never taking risks larger than absolutely necessary, always maintaining her cover as a harmless nun doing harmless work. By August 1943, she'd successfully smuggled information out of Wewelsburg 11 times. Details about SS personnel, concentration camp locations, industrial production data, military logistics. Each operation used different methods, different vectors, ensuring no pattern emerged that security could identify. The V-2 rocket specifications represent her most ambitious operation yet. On August 10th, an SS officer named Sturmbannführer Klaus Weber arrived at Wewelsburg for a 3-day conference on advanced weapons production. Weber was attached to the Peenemünde research facility where Germany developed rocket weapons. He brought classified documents, technical specifications for the V-2 rocket that Germany planned to use against British cities. The V-2 was revolutionary, the world's first long-range guided ballistic missile. If Germany could mass-produce them, the weapons could devastate Allied cities with minimal warning. Weber worked in a requisitioned office on the castle's second floor. Sister Maria's normal duties included cleaning that corridor. On August 12th, she entered Weber's office at 5:30 in the morning to empty waste baskets. Weber had left documents on his desk overnight, a security violation, but common among officers who felt safe inside Wewelsburg's perimeter. Sister Maria had approximately 4 minutes before guards completed their patrol circuit and returned to this corridor. She examined the documents quickly, photographing them with her memory. Technical drawings showing the V-2's engine assembly, specifications for the guidance system, manufacturing tolerances for critical components, fuel mixture ratios, launch trajectory calculations. 4 minutes. She absorbed information at desperate speed, forcing herself to focus despite the terror of potential discovery. When she heard boots on distant stairs, she carefully arranged the documents exactly as Weber had left them and resumed emptying wastebaskets. A guard passed, nodded, continued his patrol. Sister Maria finished cleaning and left the office. For the next week, she worked every evening in the chapel, transcribing what she remembered onto rice paper in microscopic handwriting. The complete V-2 specifications filled 12 pages, each covered in dense technical notation. She rolled the pages into a tight cylinder 3 centimeters long, sealed them in wax to protect against moisture, and began planning how to smuggle them out. Traditional encoding methods wouldn't work. The specifications were too extensive, too detailed. She needed a physical smuggling method, a way to hide documents in an object that would leave the castle without inspection. That's when she remembered the chalice. Himmler's artifact preservation program sent religious objects to Munich regularly. The chalices, communion plates, and ceremonial vessels were catalogued, then shipped for museum storage. Security was minimal because who would smuggle contraband in sacred religious artifacts? The SS valued these objects for propaganda purposes, demonstrating Nazi respect for Germanic Christian heritage, even as they planned Christianity's eventual replacement with racial paganism. Sister Maria selected the largest silver chalice in the chapel collection, a 16th century piece weighing 2 kilograms, solid silver construction, ornate decoration. Valuable enough that the SS would want it preserved, but not so precious that it would receive exceptional scrutiny. Over 3 nights, working in the chapel after midnight when guard patrols were lightest, she used a stolen drill bit and hand brace to bore a cavity into the chalice's base. The work was agonizingly slow. Silver is soft but dense. She had to drill carefully to avoid breaking through the outer wall, creating a cavity only she would know existed. Metal shavings were collected carefully, melted down and mixed with wax to seal the cavity once the documents were inserted. The operation took approximately 9 hours across 3 nights. On August 18th, she inserted the rolled documents into the cavity, sealed it with the silver wax mixture, and polished the base until the seal was invisible. The chalice looked untouched, its weight unchanged because the hollow cavity displaced negligible mass. August 19th. Today, the chalice is scheduled for transport to Munich as part of a shipment of 14 religious artifacts. Sister Maria completed the catalog paperwork yesterday, listing the chalice as 16th century, solid silver construction, good condition, recommended for preservation Category 2. The paperwork will travel with the shipment. The artifacts will be examined in Munich, photographed, and stored. Sister Maria has no direct contact with Allied intelligence. She doesn't know if her previous messages reached anyone. She has no confirmation that this operation will succeed. But she has a contact in Munich, another nun named Sister Anselma, who works at the cathedral archives and has quietly helped move Sister Maria's encoded messages to resistance contacts. The chalice shipment's documentation lists Sister Anselma as the receiving archivist. If everything works as planned, Sister Anselma will receive the chalice, discover the hidden cavity through prearranged signals in the catalog paperwork, and pass the V2 specifications to resistance networks with Allied connections. If anything goes wrong, if the cavity is discovered during inspection, if Sister Anselma is compromised, if security intercepts the shipment, Sister Maria will be arrested and executed. She accepted those risks 8 months ago when she began this work. Some mathematics are simple. Information that could save Allied lives is worth one nun's life. Sister Maria doesn't consider herself brave. She considers herself a witness fulfilling basic moral obligations. Evil is happening in Wewelsburg. Prisoners die in the camp 300 meters away. Officers plan weapons that will kill thousands. Himmler's vision of racial supremacy is being given architectural form. If she can do nothing else, she can remember. She can document. She can ensure that information reaches people who might use it to resist. August 20th, 1943, 0600 hours. Sister Maria watches from the chapel window as an SS transport truck is loaded in the courtyard. Guards carry wooden crates containing the religious artifacts. She can see the crate holding the chalice, marked with catalog numbers, handled carefully because these objects have bureaucratic value to the SS cultural apparatus. Sturmbannführer Weber supervises the loading. He's leaving Wewelsburg today, returning to Peenemünde. He doesn't know that specifications he left carelessly on a desk are now hidden in a chalice 30 meters from where he stands. The operational security failure will never be traced to him because nobody will realize it happened. The truck departs at 06:15 hours. Sister Maria watches it roll through the castle gates, down the hill, disappearing toward the Munich road. 360 kilometers. Approximately 7 hours by military transport. The chalice will reach Munich by mid-afternoon, be delivered to the cathedral archives by evening. Sister Anselma will examine it tomorrow morning. Sister Maria returns to her cell and prays. Not for success, she's made peace with uncertainty. She prays for the prisoners in Niederhagen camp who will die today. For the soldiers who will face V2 rockets if her information doesn't reach Allied intelligence in time. For everyone trapped in the machinery of this war. Victims and perpetrators both caught in something larger than individual choice. She has Mass to attend at 0700 hours in a chapel that's no longer really a chapel. Then she'll resume her work cataloging manuscripts, cleaning artifacts, moving invisibly through Wewelsburg while watching for the next careless officer, the next security failure, the next opportunity to turn the SS's institutional arrogance against itself. The chalice rolls south through German countryside on a military truck that will stop twice for fuel and once for lunch. The driver smokes and complains about the war. His assistant reads a magazine. Neither knows they're transporting information that could alter Allied bombing strategies, help British engineers develop countermeasures to rockets that haven't been launched yet, save thousands of lives in London and Antwerp and Brussels. In Munich, Sister Anselma receives notification that an artifact shipment from Wewelsburg will arrive this afternoon. She examines the catalog paperwork carefully, looking for the signals Sister Maria embeds to indicate which artifacts contain hidden information. Item 7. Silver chalice, 16th century. Preservation Category 2. The notation for Category 2 is written slightly differently than standard format, the number positioned a fraction higher on the line. To anyone else, it's a typing inconsistency. To Sister Anselma, it's a flag. August 21st, 1943. 0800 hours. Munich. Sister Anselma examines the chalice in the Cathedral Archives workroom. Beautiful piece, solid silver, heavy. She turns it slowly, looking for Sister Maria's typical hiding methods. Sometimes information is engraved in microscopic text on decorative elements. Sometimes it's encoded in the patterns of inlaid gemstones. She examines the base carefully and notices something subtle, a slight irregularity in the silver surface that could be natural variation or could be deliberately sealed cavity. She takes the chalice to the archives laboratory where tools for manuscript restoration are stored. Using a dental pick and magnifying glass, she carefully probes the base irregularity. The seal gives way easily, revealing the cavity and the rolled rice paper inside. 12 pages of technical specifications in Sister Maria's precise handwriting. Sister Anselma doesn't read German technical notation well enough to understand what she's looking at, but she recognizes that this is significant, far more detailed than the organizational charts and logistics data Sister Maria has sent previously. She reseals the cavity, returns the chalice to storage, and takes the rice paper documents to Father Dietrich, a Jesuit priest who serves as liaison between Munich's Catholic resistance networks and a Swiss diplomatic contact with Allied intelligence connections. Father Dietrich examines the documents and realizes immediately what he's holding. V-2 rocket specifications, technical details that British and American intelligence have been desperate to acquire. August 23, 1943. The documents reach Allied intelligence through Swiss diplomatic channels. British engineers at the Royal Aircraft Establishment in Farnborough receive copies by August 29th. They analyze the specifications, particularly the guidance system details and structural tolerances. The information allows them to predict V-2 trajectories with greater accuracy, identify potential failure modes, and develop early warning systems that will save hundreds of lives when Germany begins launching V-2 attacks on London in September 1944. Sister Maria knows none of this. She continues her work at Wewelsburg, invisible and patient. She identifies 3 more opportunities to memorize classified documents over the next 2 months. She develops a new smuggling method using hollowed book spines in library volumes being loaned to universities. She encodes supply chain information for German tank production into musical notation that leaves the castle as part of a medieval hymn collection. By November 1943, Allied intelligence analysts begin recognizing a pattern. High-quality information emerging from somewhere inside SS administrative networks, encoded creatively, arriving through Catholic Church channels originating in Bavaria. Someone is running an extraordinarily successful intelligence operation with no apparent support network. The source is designated by British intelligence as witness because the information reads like systematic documentation by someone determined to create a record. Sister Maria continues working through 1944 as Germany's military situation deteriorates. Allied armies advance from all directions. The SS becomes more paranoid. Security tightens. But institutional arrogance remains. Officers still leave documents on desks. Security still treats the harmless nun as furniture. She continues documenting, encoding, smuggling. April 1st, 1945. American forces approach Wewelsburg. The SS begins evacuating, destroying records, executing prisoners to eliminate witnesses. Sister Maria watches the camp being emptied, knowing most prisoners are being marched to death rather than liberated. She hides in the castle's extensive cellars as SS demolition teams prepare to destroy the complex. They set charges throughout the castle, intending to deny it to the Allies. April 2nd, 1945, American troops from the 95th Infantry Division reach Wewelsburg. They find the castle partially demolished but structurally intact. They find scattered prisoners who escaped the evacuation march. They find Sister Maria Therese Gottwald in the chapel, kneeling before an altar in a building dedicated to replacing Christianity, surrounded by chalices and crosses that survived the SS's occupation. Intelligence officers interview her. She describes what she witnessed at Wewelsburg, the camp, the deaths, Himmler's occult ceremonies. She mentions in passing that she occasionally sent information to a contact in Munich when opportunities arose. The intelligence officers are interested but focused on immediate tactical concerns: securing the area, processing refugees, pursuing retreating SS units. It takes 3 weeks before anyone connects Sister Maria to Witness, the mysterious intelligence source who provided crucial information from inside SS networks. British intelligence officers arrive to interview her extensively. She describes her methods, the memorization, the encoding, the smuggling operations. They're astounded by the scope of what she accomplished alone, without training, without support networks, using nothing but memory and institutional camouflage. They ask why she did it. She looks at them with confusion. Because it was necessary, she says simply. Someone had to witness what was happening. Someone had to ensure the information reached people who could act on it. Sister Maria returns to the Franciscan monastery in Paderborn in June 1945. The war in Europe is over. She resumes teaching Latin to novices, cataloging manuscripts, living the quiet contemplative life she chose 23 years earlier. She refuses recognition, declines interviews, never speaks publicly about her wartime activities. To her, espionage was simply an extension of her vows, bearing witness to truth, resisting evil through whatever means available. British intelligence estimates that information Sister Maria smuggled from Wewelsburg contributed to intelligence assessments that influenced Allied strategy in at least 14 operational contexts. The V2 specifications she extracted in August 1943 allowed development of countermeasures that reduced civilian casualties from rocket attacks by an estimated 20 to 30%. Her documentation of SS organizational structures helped Allied war crimes. Prosecutors at Nuremberg identify command responsibilities. Her systematic record of Niederhagen camp operations provided evidence that contributed to multiple convictions. She used chalices, books, manuscripts, music, and prayer as weapons against fascism. She proved that institutions built on violence and paranoia contain inherent vulnerabilities that patience and precision can exploit. The SS created Wewelsburg as a temple to racial supremacy and military power. Sister Maria turned it into a source of intelligence that helped defeat everything the castle was meant to represent. She died in Paderborn on November 14, 1976, at age 74. Her obituary in the local newspaper described her as a retired Latin teacher and devoted servant of God. It mentioned briefly that she had lived at Wewelsburg during the war. It said nothing about espionage, smuggling, or the countless lives her careful documentation helped save. The chalice she modified in August 1943 remains in Munich Cathedral archives, catalogued as a 16th-century artifact of historical significance. The cavity in its base has been sealed since 1945. No one opens it now. But intelligence historians know what that chalice once carried and how one nun's understanding of institutional blindness and patient technical skill created opportunities where none should have existed. Sometimes the most sophisticated weapons are simply tools used correctly by people who refuse to accept that evil is inevitable.